All right, let's just jump right in, shall we? Welcome to this Explainer. Today we're diving into something super fascinating, but honestly, a little bit frustrating about the human brain. We're talking about our intuition gap. You see, when it comes to chance, risk, and probability, our gut instincts, they completely and utterly fail us. So what we're going to do today is use the foundational math of probability to show you exactly how your brain is tricking you, and how we can use mathematical tools to finally see reality clearly.
To show you just how easily our intuition gets fooled, I want you to imagine this classic puzzle studied by the psychologist Amos Tversky. Okay, so a town has a large hospital where about 45 babies are born each day, and a small one where 15 are born. Now, the overall proportion of boys is normally 50%, right? So which hospital will have the greater number of days where more than 60% of the babies born are boys? The large one, the small one, or about the same? Take a second. Got your answer? Well, if you immediately guessed about the same, you are in good company. Most people do. But the correct answer is actually the small hospital. Why? Because smaller sample sizes are way more likely to show extreme fluctuations. Just a few extra boys in a 15-baby sample swings that percentage wildly, whereas 45 babies will naturally regress closer to that 50% average. If you guessed wrong, hey, don't worry about it. It just proves that human instinct when it comes to mathematical probability is fundamentally flawed.
Section 1. Gut Instincts and Gambling. Let's go back in time a bit. Picture a 17th century French nobleman and gambler named Chevalier de Marais. Now this guy had a favorite bet. He'd wager that in 4 rolls of a single die, he'd get at least 1 6, and he won pretty consistently. So to keep things interesting, he changed the game. He started betting that in 24 rolls of 2 dice, he'd roll a pair of 6s. His gut instinct told him, 24 rolls has to be enough for a favorable bet. But then he started losing. And this was considered a massive scandal at the time. People literally claimed that mathematics itself was broken. So he reached out to the mathematicians Blaise Pascal and Pierre de Fermat to figure out why on earth his gut was so wrong.
Well, Pascal and Fermat ran the numbers and discovered that the true probability of winning that second bet was only 49.1%. It was a losing game. But here is the truly mind-blowing part. How did de Marais even notice that slight edge just by playing? Statistically speaking, a person would need to roll the dice a staggering 27,000 times to have a reasonable mathematical chance to actually feel by experience that the probability was under 50%. That's insane. Our human experience just isn't designed to detect a 0.9% disadvantage in real time. Our brains simply can't compute it.
Section 2. Simulating the impossible.
So let's look at how this understanding builds over time. We start back in the 1600s with Pascal and Fermat formalizing the math behind gambling. Then we move through the 1700s with figures like Casanova testing out different betting systems. But the real game changer? That happens in the 1940s. During World War II, physicists at Los Alamos, guys like John von Neumann and Stanislas Ulam, were trying to figure out how far neutrons travel through materials. The math was practically impossible to solve on paper, so they decided to model these chance experiments using early computers. And because their work was top secret, they needed a cool code name. They called it the Monte Carlo method.
By using random number generators on a computer, the Monte Carlo method basically lets us simulate millions of coin tosses, dice rolls, or atomic collisions in just seconds. Honestly, it's like a superpower. When a chance experiment has outcomes that are just too complex for our brains to grasp, we don't have to rely on our flawed intuition anymore. And we definitely don't have to sit around for 27,000 manual dice rolls. We just simulate the whole thing and watch reality reveal itself.
Section 3. The Rules of Chance.
All right, so the really crucial point here is understanding the underlying framework. In probability, absolutely every experiment starts with what we call a sample space, which is represented by the Greek letter omega. This is simply the set of all possible outcomes. Think about it. If you toss a coin, the sample space is just heads and tails. Roll a standard die, it's 1 through 6. This simple kind of categorization is the very first step in replacing our messy, unreliable intuition with clear, bounded logic. And from that sample space, we get these absolute, unbreakable properties. A probability can never, ever be negative. The total probability always adds up perfectly to 1. And honestly, my favorite rule, the probability of an event not happening is always exactly 1 minus the probability it does happen. This means that no matter how chaotic a casino floor or a complex physics experiment might seem on the surface, chance is actually locked inside a tight, logical, mathematical box. It literally cannot break these rules.
Section 4. The Martingale Mirage.
Let's jump to 1754. The famous adventurer Casanova wrote in his memoirs about this supposedly foolproof system he used at a casino in Venice. He wrote, "Determinately doubling my stakes, according to the system known as the martingale, I won 3 or 4 times a day. I never lost the 6th card." Now, the martingale system is beautifully seductive to our intuition. The idea is, if you lose a bet, you simply double your wager on the very next turn. When you finally win, boom, you recover all your previous losses, plus you make a profit. It totally feels like guaranteed free money, right?
But yeah, here is where that intuition gap strikes again. Mathematically speaking, no betting system on Earth can transform an unfair game into a fair or favorable one. If the casino has a built-in mathematical edge, even a really tiny one, doubling your bets just means you're exposing yourself to exponential ruin. Eventually, for sure, a losing streak is going to hit that wipes out your entire bankroll before you even get the chance to double your bet again. You just can't bypass the fundamental rules of chance by changing the size of your bet.
Section 5. Wandering in the woods. Imagine a simple coin toss game between two friends. Let's call them Peter and Paul. Heads, Peter wins a penny. Tails, Peter loses a penny. And they toss this coin 40 times. Now, if you ask people to guess Peter's final total winnings at the end of the game, our intuition is actually pretty spot on here. If we run 10,000 simulations, Peter's final winnings form this beautiful, perfect bell curve, peaking right at 0. We just naturally expect that a fair coin is going to balance out, leaving Peter neither rich nor poor at the end. Makes sense.
But what happens when we ask a slightly different question? During those 40 tosses, how often is Peter actually in the lead? Our gut immediately screams that the lead should bounce back and forth, right? We'd assume Peter spends about half the time winning and half the time losing. But the simulation shows something wild, a massive U-shaped curve. It's the exact opposite of our intuition. The least likely outcome is that the players split the lead evenly. The most mathematically likely outcome is that one player leads for almost the entire game. So even in a completely fair, completely random game, someone almost always looks like they're totally dominating.
This whole concept of random movement over time brings us to the famous mathematician George Polya. Back in the early 1900s, Polya was taking walks in the woods near his hotel in Zurich, and he kept randomly bumping into the exact same couple over and over again, to the point where he was actually deeply embarrassed. It honestly looked like he was stalking them. But it got his mathematician brain working. He started wondering, if you are wandering completely randomly, are you mathematically destined to eventually return to where you started or cross paths with someone else?
Well, Polya actually solved this, and in doing so, he gave birth to the theory of the random walk. Here's how it works. In one dimension, think of just walking forward and backward on a straight line, or in 2 dimensions, like randomly wandering a grid of city streets, mathematics completely guarantees that a random walker will eventually return to their exact starting point. It's an absolute certainty. But what if you move into 3 dimensions, like a bird flying randomly in the sky or a fish swimming in the ocean? The math changes entirely. In 3 dimensions, a random walker is no longer guaranteed to return. They can literally drift away forever.
And that brings us to the end of this explainer. We've seen just how poorly our gut grasps the true nature of chance, how powerful simulations are at uncovering hidden truths, and how unbreakable mathematical rules actually govern our reality. So I want to leave you with this mathematically derived question to ponder. In the multidimensional random walk of life, are you destined to eventually return to your starting point, or will you drift away forever? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning your intuition.